The Hangar Z podcast welcomes Todd Jager, retired chief pilot from the San Diego Police Department.
There was a line that Kevin used to use a lot, and it stuck with me for a long time because it's 100% true. And I think about it frequently when people talk about, oh, this was lucky, or this was, you were lucky with this, or you were lucky with that. But Kevin would always say that chance favors the prepared mind. And the fact of the matter is, not if you were given that opportunity, but you weren't prepared for it in one form or another, then it would have been squandered on you. So in my life, I think of many things. What I've been lucky at is I've been lucky at never being horribly unlucky. That's a big deal, guys. That's a big deal. But the hands that I've been dealt, even the ones like, yeah, it's kind of a crappy little hand, but like, yeah, but I've been practicing this hand for a while. I think I can do this. And so for me, I've been dealt awesome hands, and I played those cards through practice and preparation.
Welcome back to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Plus. In this episode, we are honored to welcome a true aviator and one of the innovators of law enforcement aviation FLIR tactics. Todd Jager is a retired chief pilot of the San Diego Police Department. He has incredible knowledge and experience in all aspects of training, safety, and tactics in the law enforcement aviation world. Todd, along with his longtime partner Kevin Means, developed tactics and techniques with the FLIR that evolved into common practices today. He was also the TFO over the renowned San Diego tank chase. This is an incredible conversation you will not want to miss a minute of. Thank you to our sponsors, Shotover Systems, Precision Aviation Group, and Airbus.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Plus. I'm your host, Jack Shanley. With me today is the creator of the Hangar Z podcast, John Gray. John, how are you?
Hello, Jack. Man, I'm excited. I'll tell you that. We've talked a lot about our particular guest that's joining us today. So we've built it up in a lot of ways, and I think it's going to be a really good conversation. There's a lot of conversations we have that people refer back to a lot.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be one of those.
I agree completely. John, have we had anybody on where 4 or 5 previous guests said, why hasn't Todd been on? I mean, we've had that happen to us over and over and over. Why is Todd not on? And I said, well, Todd's been invited. And they said, well, good, he'll come on. Well, we finally got him. And this, I understand all his reasoning for the delay. I do. I respect it. But we are thrilled that he agreed to come on, because the value of this guest for our listeners is beyond what Todd even comprehends. We know it. His people that he worked with over the years know it. You know it, John. And this will be fun. So it's multifaceted. There's so many layers to Todd. Our followers are going to find out very quickly that why we wanted to get Todd Jager on here. So
you kept telling me you knew Todd, and you said you were talking to him and that he was thinking about joining us. And I started to think maybe you don't really know him. You're name dropping here, but apparently that's not true.
No, I actually knew him. He was just evasive, but I'm a hunter, John. I will track you down, and I will contain you in a perimeter, search for you, and find you, even if you're in a trash can, Todd. And I didn't have to go to a trash can to find Todd, but very true, everything you said, John. So, but it's here. So with that, before I get to his true introduction, let me just say, Todd Jager, welcome to the Hangar Z podcast. Finally,
Thank you, Jack. I will tell you, it is because that I know you and that I probably owe you that I'm here. So, and I know that you had to work to cajole me. I actually asked my wife how many times I said, "This guy just won't quit. Oh my God, he's killing me." So here I am.
Well, good. And you owe me nothing. It's the opposite. And we'll get into that. I owe Todd a lot. I really do. In a lot of ways. He was one of the people I called regularly for advice on different things. Again, safety, training, teaching, all sorts of things. And we're going to get into all of it. This is going to be a very comprehensive discussion. But I want to start with something here, just so our listeners can hear a little bit about Todd that we're not going to get in a bio form. Todd is a true aviator. There's a lot of helicopter pilots out there. I was a helicopter pilot. John, you were a helicopter pilot. But I never considered myself a true, well-rounded aviator. This guest is an aviator. It's a law enforcement aviator. And I have proof. Just flight experience here. I'm just going to go down some of these numbers. Total helicopter flight time is 10,624 hours. Night flight total is 7,059. So that's what's I call the police work? A clue. This is a worker bee. When Todd was working, he was working. He was at night hunting the bad guys and doing his thing at 7,000 out of 10,006 hours at night. Yeah. 1,500 on night vision goggles. Yeah. But he's also an airplane, fixed wing pilot. Has over 1,000 hours in that. Has over 1,000 hours of instruction time. So he was a CFI. And as a tactical flight officer during all this, he also has over 4,000 hours. So that gives our listeners an idea. This is a very well-rounded law enforcement aviator working both sides of the cockpit and lots of experience, lots of knowledge. And I'm telling you that he was one of the best. And he's very humble about it. But again, I'm going to prove what I say in what we talk about. So that's why, Todd, we are really excited to have you.
I appreciate that, Jack. Numbers sound great and they look good. Believe it or not, to this minute, I still keep a pilot logbook, which most professional aviators think I'm out of my mind for doing that. And just the other day, I couldn't, and I'm proud. I just rolled 12,000 total PIC hours at the beginning of May, and I couldn't help it. I had to take a picture of that, send it to my wife and my kids, and say, "Hey, man, I've been up here for a little bit," and that's cool for sure. But it's what you did in that time. It's the things that you did and the way that you carried yourself. Because anybody can go up and drone around in the sky for a long time. So while I'm proud of the numbers, I'm more proud of the what we actually pulled off out there.
And I agree. And you did. Oh man, what you're talking about there in all forms.
Well, I really mean it, and this is going to come out several times. We did. Yep. We did it. I never did anything on my own. Never, ever, ever once. I was part of an amazing team of people. Sometimes it was just a team of 2 people. Yeah. And sometimes we were dragging the rest of our buddies through this stuff, and resentfully so at times. But in the end, we did this as a team, and I never one time ever did anything in the air by myself, and that deserved any credit. That's for sure.
Yeah, understood. And I'm glad you pointed that out because I know, a lot of the things we're going to talk about were certainly a team effort, but you were an integral part of that team. And we'll get into that here in a few minutes, but
sure,
we're going to cover a lot of stuff. I don't even know where to begin. And for those that don't know, if you've lived under a rock for a few years, Todd is the retired chief pilot of San Diego PD's Air Unit. He spent a lot of time there. We're going to get into detail of his time there and what he did. And one of the things he did was the tank pursuit. And we're going to get to that. The tank pursuit is Todd. Almost everybody's seen that video in San Diego of the tank pursuit. And that video was recorded from a San Diego Police Department helicopter with you at the controls of that camera and TFOing. And Todd is going to give us the behind the scenes detail of all the tank pursuit. But that's just it's such a cool thing. And I always kid him. He drives him it drives Todd crazy. I'd introduce him to people at a convention and say, "Oh, this is my friend Todd. He's the tank pursuit guy." And he'd just go, "I'm going to kill you later." And I'm like, I know, that's why I say it, because but I know that is just a blip on the radar screen to what you did and what you gave to the city of San Diego and what you gave to your unit and what you gave to all of us in the tactics and techniques and stuff that San Diego was using and professing and really testing and sharing. And that's what I'm going to get at. So that's where we're going to start. I want to start with your impact on law enforcement, aviation tactics and practices. It's a wide, that's a broad topic, but I'll tell you why I think this is important, and then I'm going to let you run, man. You're going to run with this.
Okay.
I think history is important.
But when you're done, I've got something to say before he goes. So
okay,
don't let him interrupt our conversation here.
Oh, don't you worry. I'm in control now, Todd. I'm the captain. I am the captain now. I think history is important, and we owe so much. All of us in police work owe so much to the people that came before us in tactics and techniques, and much of it happened through tragedy. I've said that in my class for years.
Absolutely.
Something bad happens, and then we go, "Oh, we need this piece of equipment. We should be doing this technique. We need to change that tactic." Yeah, but those people are hurt, are dead. Why didn't anybody think of that? Oh, we did. We just didn't act on it. That's the kind of lack of foresight that happens with most stuff in law enforcement. But the thing we're going to talk about right now isn't that. It is foresight and vision. Vision from two people in particularly, one of them with us today, the other being Kevin Means, your partner.
Absolutely.
Partner in crime. You had vision and foresight, and you didn't even know at the time that you had vision and foresight. You just thought, well, this makes sense. But that's what I'm talking about. That's why we're going to talk about the impact. John, go.
As I think through my early years as a TFO, I never got a chance to fly with you or Kevin. But when I think back on the tactics that I learned early on at APSCON in particular, taking Kevin Means' class, and I think back on that, I realized that your DNA and fingerprints are all over the tactics that I learned and that I employed in my career. And then I think through a larger picture that extrapolate that across, not just the U.S., but think about Harold in the Netherlands, what he's doing.
Yeah.
A lot of the tactics that you developed with Kevin, and you guys taught, and later Nick Minks, have impacted and influenced tactical decision making from a helicopter in a bazillion people. That's something that a lot of people can't say. Jack can say that, Nick Minks can say that, Clay Lacey can say that, you and Kevin can say that. That's a pretty small group, but I don't say that to make your head big. Why I say that is for the audience to understand how what you've done in your career in law enforcement it's so impactful that people that are doing things today are doing things because of what they learned ultimately through the tactics you guys developed, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So,
well, I really appreciate that. I do, and I do recognize the gravity of what we ended up doing. To know that we never set out to do that. We were just two bumbling idiots that didn't know any better. We didn't know what we didn't know, to be honest with you. And I think that's really kind of important from a couple different aspects. We were both, when I was trying to come to the unit, my first mentor, if you will, the sergeant of that unit, who handpicked the people that went to that unit. There was no interview back in the day. And it was to whatever extent that you impressed him over a long course of time. You're not going to go into some interview, shine, and then he's going to pick the wrong guy. But he said to me one day, he said, what are you going to do up here someday when this gets to be just a job? How are you going to handle that? Because he knew all I wanted to do. I didn't have any kids at the time. I was relatively newly married, and I just went to work and flew. That's all I ever did. And he said, what are you going to do when this is just a job? And I remember thinking to myself, man, I just can't imagine this ever being just a job. And I'm here to tell you, after 32 and a half years, that never was, not one single day, never, ever once was just a job to me. There were certainly times that, pressures of life, like, man, I could deal with not being here tonight. We're trying to do this or that or the other thing. But almost without question, every time I went to work, I was glad to be there. And that was why Kevin and I worked together so well. And frankly, I think they put Kevin and I together because it's like, put those two guys together. They just drive everybody else crazy because they will not stop. They don't stop. They just constantly want to go. They just can't take 5 minutes of flying around without something going on. If there isn't something going on, they're going to invent something going on. And that is true. Kevin was ahead of me in the unit. Kevin, when I got picked up in the unit, Kevin was a brand new restricted pilot in command. So he was just feeling his oats there. And he had been there for a while. He had waited a little bit for a little while because we got picked up. Everybody that came to our unit was already a commercial instrument rated pilot. We didn't have any TFOs. When we were TFOing, we called it, you were the tactical pilot. We called it a TAC pilot and a PIC. And under the perfect circumstances, which it would usually end up once somebody was all through their training, we were both pilots in command. And do you want to fly one? Do you want to, what do you want to do this time around? And we would just work it out between the two of us who was going to do what. So when I was a brand new pilot, still on restrictions, Kevin was too new. They wouldn't even let me fly with him because they didn't want to have a green on green situation. And then ultimately, years later, I don't know, probably not too long later, maybe a year or so, we started flying together. And I think Kevin realized that I was into the techie stuff as much as he was. And we started to gel a little bit. And before you knew it, we were flying together every time we had a chance. And Kevin would develop an idea. We had these old FLIR 2000 FVs. With 2020 hindsight looking backwards, they were atrociously bad pieces of equipment. They were really horrible. I don't know how we could find a bonfire on the beach with those things. They were so bad.
Yep.
And if we found it, we sure as heck didn't know where the heck it was. I mean, that was, I think I found him. Like, where am I looking? I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out myself. Just don't lose it on the camera and I'll try to figure it out. That was one of the things that we developed. In fact, I think that was probably, when you get right down to it, I mean, this machine is only capable of so much. In the best of hands, and Kevin had the best of hands with it, in the best of hands and in the best development of the best picture. There was no automation with it whatsoever. There was no stabilization. There was no gyro stabilization. They had a thing called low cost rate stabilization. It was the next best thing to no help whatsoever. And you actually spent most of your time fighting it, but it took a little bit of the aircraft movement out. But what Kevin and I really developed was the ability, the CRM of the two of us working together safely to figure out how to solve this problem. We're looking, I would tell everybody this, hey man, you get a FLIR mission to go someplace. Half the battle is finding the bad guy. The real test of this is going to be getting the good guys to the bad guy. Now, nowadays, it's not nearly that difficult. I loved it when I was done towards the end. I was like, man, this is so much easier than it used to be. Geez, I geolocate this particular location. I'm looking right at it. There's the bad guy. I look at my map. Yeah, he's in the backyard of blah, 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 blah. I mean, I can spit out the whole address. When Kevin and I did this, you literally knew your air beats well enough that I can look down and go, okay, this is one block south of University. That's the 3800 block. He's on the west side. That's going to be an even number. He's about mid block just north of that. So it's about 3854 whatever street. And there might not be that address, but I promise you, plus or minus one house, that's where he is. And so that's definitely some law enforcement beat knowledge, but also the ability that we worked on was the ability for the TFO just could not possibly, even Kevin Means, could not find this target and look around and tell you where he is without losing him. But combined with a competent, hardworking pilot that was willing to put in the extra work. It's a lot more work. It's a lot easier just to you let me know what you need over there, buddy. Mm-hmm. But if you're sitting there working with them and you're doing so carefully, you can do almost magical things in there. And that's what we learned how to do. Trial and error. There were no classes to go to on this thing. We had no idea what we were doing. We made a million mistakes. And our number one goal was to not make a mistake that resulted in anything bad happening to us, or almost more important than that, anything bad happening to a ground officer that we were trying to direct to these bad guys, but somehow screwed this up and got them hurt. Right. Those were our number one priorities at all times.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
That's what we set out to do. And, shooting ahead, way ahead, that's exactly what we ended up doing. But part of the reason that we were able to do that is we both had so much drive. We wanted this to work so badly. And I don't even think we felt like, we have a new idea. This isn't a new idea. This is just equipment we have that the vast majority of everybody just ignores. I would talk to air units all the time who had sensors significantly better than ours. And I'd say, hey, how do you like your Star Sapphire? Oh, we don't even turn it on. It's just bolted on the bottom of the aircraft. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, man. I would literally give up my house and sleep in a tent in a ditch to have that on the bottom of my aircraft, and you don't even turn it on? Well, it's a lot of work, and frankly, none of us know how to use it. Uh-huh. Oh my God, it drove me crazy. And I would hear that all the time. That happened all the time. And we had guys in our own unit that, they would go out and they'd work a call. And it's like, hey, did you use a FLIR? Nah, we just use the light. I was like, what are you doing? But it was a lot of work. And you run the risk of, you don't run the risk. When you're learning to do that, you are going to be wrong. And you're going to be wrong a lot. Yeah. And you're going to direct officers to things that they worked really hard to get to, and it was a compost pile, or it was a raccoon, or God only knows what. But I used
beehive.
Absolutely.
Remember the beehive?
Absolutely.
That's on video.
That's happened more than once, by the way, just for the record, more than once. Yeah.
I know.
But, I would tell new TFOs, I want you to think about this like you're a Major League Baseball and you're a hitter, okay? You can't hit a home run if you're not willing to swing at the ball. And if you swing at the ball, especially when you're new, you're going to miss. You're going to strike out a lot in the beginning, okay? Don't lose faith in yourself on this. Keep working at it. Learn from your mistakes. And pretty soon, you're going to start hitting a few doubles, and pretty soon you'll start putting them out of the park. But don't be surprised. Don't be upset after you become a slugger home run hitter. You're still going to whiff at this stuff. I whiffed till the last minute that I was in there. I always knew every single time that I went out, well, my confidence level is pretty high in this particular call, but I'm not so sure.
I wish I'd heard those words when I was a new TFO.
Yeah.
I just talked about this recently. My experience is like the experience I think of a lot of folks, not everybody, and Jack's an exception to this, but in my experience, I had left the field where I'd worked for 9 years. I'd come up as a corporal. I was very confident in my ability in the field. Get to air support, sit in the TFO seat, and I apparently forgot how to be a police officer because it was the hardest job I'd ever done. I couldn't figure it out. And I remember walking out there for every flight. I'm just like, my confidence level is so low. You get in there, like, well, I'm going to get my ass kicked again. Here we go. And those words you just spoke are so valuable. And that's what I hope that the TFOs that are maybe newly selected, maybe they're in that position now, hear those words, and it's encouraging to them because it's 100% true. At some point, it's almost like the hover button. You find it, and you figure out how to do the job, right, and you excel. So that statement is huge, and I appreciate you saying that.
You bet. And, and again, reiterating, I can go back, I can think about an incident in particular that I worked with Paul Conley, and we were super low on fuel. This is, definitely later in my career. We're super low on fuel, but this call is very close to our base, and it's supposed to be a burglary in progress. So we respond to it, and we catch these guys coming out of, I think if I remember correctly, it was like a residential burglary where they had run into a park or a canyon. We get there before any ground units get there, but the ground units are closely putting pressure on them. We get there, worse in pressure, the ground units are some pressure, and they run into a bathroom in a park. And I'm like, oh, got them. Here we've got this. This is perfect. And Paul's working a perfect orbit. I've got them on there. We're good. The units get up there, and if I remember correctly, there was something really goofy about the doors being locked or something like that. And I said, "Yeah, guys, their doors are locked because they locked them from the inside. You know what I mean? That's what happened. So they're in there. I'm telling you that they're in there." And I made my exact words I don't remember, but it was emphatic. They are inside there. But we are on vapor. We got to go. We get a good perimeter set around it. We head back for fuel. They end up getting a canine there, and somehow they got a key and got inside there, and there's nobody inside there. And I'm like, this is impossible. And sure enough, man, I break out the tape and look at it. It's like, well, there you go right there. At one little corner of our orbit, my fault, not Paul's, on my field of view, it was just simply not wide enough. And the person made about a 1 second movement through there. Had I been wider, I would have for sure caught him in the zone, but I wasn't. I was too tight. Bust me completely. And Kevin used that immediately in his next operation, then his next class. And I had people coming up to me at ALEA going, I absolutely guarantee you he's inside there. I'm like, really? Are you serious? Like, okay, whatever. I mean, if I'm going to make mistakes, somebody else might as well learn from it. So, when in doubt, widen out on this.
There you go.
Exactly.
Well, let's follow up with that story, because I have other things to go back to. But let's follow up with that story you just told.
Sure.
And fast forward to the CHP pursuit with the shed. You remember this?
I do remember. That too was with Paul Connolly.
Todd,
Yeah.
I use it in my class for years.
Yeah.
And talk us through that example, what you did differently because of that previous example, and how you maybe worded it differently, and what you did in the cockpit. And just tell us that shed story with the CHP.
Sure. Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. When I think back in history, those were probably not far off from each other in time. And I don't even know which one came first, to tell you the truth. I really don't know. However, the CHP pursuit was CHP. We weren't part of it. They had a pursuit that was going, and by the time that we were called, they had already lost the guy in a particular area. And we got there and found this guy making his way through backyards. And we're talking to the chippies at that point in time. And we've got units from our Southeastern Division that are en route to assist them, including K9. And Jack, maybe you're going to have to help me. We saw him go in the shed?
No,
yes or no?
You're over it. He leaves your view on the backside of the orbit.
Right.
But you're wide.
Right.
And when you come around, where you last saw him is the side with the door.
Right.
And you are 99.9% sure he went in that door.
Right.
That was it. It was backside of the orbit, came around. Well, he's in that shed. But as I recall, you didn't say that.
Right.
How did you say it? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, I don't remember how I said it, but I can tell you, had I not been sure, I would say, hey, listen, we've been holding an orbit on this. He was on the backside of the orbit when we came around. He's gone, and the door is wide open there. So there's a very good chance he's in that shed. Now, through that entire time, and I remember this distinctly, we kept a nice, healthy, wide view of this backyard, because I know the units that are coming in are going to be concentrating on that shed, which means they're going to let their guard down on anything that might be behind them. If I'm wrong, I'm letting this suspect have the backs of these officers. Not okay. Can't do that. So Paul and I were working double overtime to make sure we were keeping a super good infrared perimeter on this entire backyard that they're working in. Ultimately, they end up making entry into this place. And I don't remember if they made an initial entry with a dog or not. But I know that they went in there, and I know it was pretty quick, and they came right out because it was just a small shed. He goes, yeah, Abel, there's nobody in here. And I remember specifically, I'm sure it's on the tape, me saying to Paul, there's no way. How could he not be in there? And the whole time I'm thinking, there's no way. I can't believe this. So we immediately scour. I'm like, well, we've had this locked down. If he moved, he couldn't have gone very far at all. We work it. And finally, I convinced the units, hey, listen, if you've got this for a minute, I'm going to stop what I'm doing, and I'm going to play the tape back. I need to look at this again. I watched the tape a couple times. I can't tell you in my career how valuable having instant replay in the aircraft, whether it was the old days backing up a VHS tape or digitally in the end, being able to look back at what I thought happened or what I thought I saw or didn't see, and being able to confirm that with something that I can like move frame by frame, go, no, there he is right there. I missed that. He's moving out of the corner of the photo, of the image. So we went back and looked at it, and we were absolutely convinced he wasn't there, or that he was inside there. And if I remember correctly, they went back and again, came out again and said, no, man, there's nobody in there. This is driving me bananas. And ultimately, we took a San Diego police officer directly, instead of talking just to the CHP guys. I talked to and I think it was a canine unit. And I said, hey, listen, man, when you go in there, you've really got to look hard. You got to go. And I don't remember if we said look up, but I can't tell you how many times. I mean, it's like nobody looks up. Nobody ever looks up. Just look up. And sure enough, he goes in there, looks up, guy's right up there in the rafters. But you could have easily, especially the second time they went in and searched it and said there's nothing in there, you could easily go, well, I guess we screwed this up. He's right there. So you need to have, that takes competence, and frequently without the right training and without the right practice and without the right currency. You've been doing this for a while, and you've been doing it for a while recently. You're not going to have the confidence to lay it down like that. And also, once again, you just got to be willing to send them back in there the third time, tell them to look up and have them say, Todd, we looked up. There's nobody in there. Give it up, brother. And then they can walk away talking like you're crazy. That's fine. That's because if we make that work, even 1 out of 50 times, that's a winning home run average right there.
That story, I've used that every single class for multiple reasons, depending on who the audience is. One of the lessons is you have to look up. Cops don't look up. I've had bad guys tell me that we have found in very high places, particularly indoors, on canine search, they go, man, you went to a lot of trouble to get up in that ceiling. Why do you go up there? Why did you go to that top shelf? And they say, well, the ones that are willing to talk multiple times have said, well, I didn't want any part of that dog. And cops don't look up. Well, where did they get that idea? From cops not looking up. And they're up there and they watch the cops come in, search, and leave. And they wait an hour and they leave. I mean, they get away. And then the word gets out. Hey, these stupid cops, they don't look up. It's just experience. And so that's a valuable lesson. But the other lessons that I would share, especially if it was air crews, is stay wide. The fact that you had that rewind and were willing to use it. Question yourself first. That's a lesson that I would say. Always question yourself first. What did I screw up here? Did I mess something up? Before I start laying it off on somebody else and saying, hey guys, you missed him in that shed. Let's make sure I didn't miss him going out. That's what you did. And I love that. And as I recall, the wording that you used was very professional. Hey guys, I know you checked the shed, but I just did the rewind. I took another look. I really appreciate it. Took another look at it. You didn't say, hey, you morons. He's in the shed, even though you wanted to say it. You didn't say that. I
wasn't sure he was in there.
No, you weren't sure. And unless you see a guy go in the shed, slam the door, and all 4 sides are covered at the moment that happens, you're never 100% sure. And you have to word things that way. You worded it beautifully, as I recall. And that's why I use it, Todd.
Well, I'm going to back up for a minute and talk about this because I threw it out there that we did these things as a team. Both of those last incidents that we talked about, I was flying with Paul Connolly. I was the TFO. He was the pilot in command. Paul was an excellent pilot. And part of the reason that Paul was an excellent pilot is Paul flew very much the way that I would when I can work this FLIR as good as anybody, maybe short of Kevin. I think I can hold my own with, I'd go toe to toe with anybody, but maybe not Kevin. I'd probably rather not get in the FLIR Olympics with Kevin. Other than that, I'll take my chances with anybody. That being said, when I was flying for Kevin, I would ask myself subconsciously 100 times in orbit, what does he need? What does he need? What does he need? What does he need? I'm flying this orbit as if I was working the FLIR. And the minute I saw something that I realized that if I was working the FLIR, I would feel like, get me around there. You don't have to say, get me around there to me. I'm going.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm going as fast as we can safely get there. That's part of, I don't care how good the gear is these days, guys, unless you have a pilot that's going to fly you properly around this call. The new equipment can really make up for some bad piloting.
Yeah.
That being said, it's not magic. It doesn't see through things. And if you're on the wrong side of the orbit and you're way out on the wrong side of this orbit, well, guess what, man?
Yep.
You're giving these guys forever to put their plan together to either escape or hurt the officers on the ground.
Exactly.
So you need, I don't know how agencies that have pilots and TFOs, and pilots rarely, if ever, get in the TFO seat. I'm like, man, I don't know how you do it, because how could I possibly be a halfway decent FLIR pilot if I never worked the FLIR? And when Kevin and I worked together, the vast majority of time, at least 75% of the time, he was the pilot, he was the TFO, and I was the pilot, because that's what he and I gravitated towards, and we worked so well together like that. The minute I was in the cockpit with anybody else, they're like, why don't you be the TFO? Like, okay, whatever, And I'll tell you this too, honestly, this is kind of a fun thing I think about frequently. A good TFO can drag a mediocre pilot through a call, okay? A great pilot can barely push on a lousy TFO, and it just doesn't work. I would tell people it's like pushing on a rope. You can push it a little bit and it'll move a little bit, but then it just moves off to the side. Yeah. You cannot, as a master pilot, you cannot drag a mediocre TFO through a call. That's why TFO selection, TFO training, recurrent training, encouragement, just begging people to please get into this. That's where this was. Most people come to air support if you have pilot aspirations. Most people, they just want to get in the right seat of that aircraft, slam on a helmet, and tell everybody that they're a pilot. That's what they were looking for. But once you get up there and you start doing it, you realize, like, hey, that's real cool and everything, and we can't do it without you for sure. But in the end, this guy over here, this is the rock star of this. Okay, he is the person who is going to make or break this. And while you might walk away with the FLIR Vision Award in your pocket when it's all said and done, you did it because he was an outstanding TFO, and you backed him up with great piloting skills and CRM.
Bravo. Wow, that was gold, ladies and gentlemen. That was gold. That holds true to this day, no matter what the equipment is. It just does.
I believe you.
And just for some context, Todd, I want to go back and just remind us what era, what are the dates, what years are we talking about when in the beginning, when you and Kevin were doing this and formulating these tactics and learning and making all these mistakes? Not everybody knows that. I do, John does, but tell our listeners, what time period is this?
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
I came to air support in the summer of 1993. We had a alternate pilot program. This, once again, trying these guys on for size. And we had airplanes and helicopters. So the alternate pilots would almost exclusively, our pilots needed to have commercial instrument ratings. So we were all airplane commercial instrument rated. We had to go get that on our own, one way or the other. And so I did that along with working my assignment. At the time, I was assigned to a federal grant, violent crime suppression operation. It was very cool. But I would get stolen away to go up to air support all the time and do stuff at air support, which was a blast. And then, so in October of 1994, I went full time, and I went to helicopter school immediately, like the beginning of December. I went to helicopter school because, well, you didn't have to try me out. You've been trying me out for the last, year and a half. And I came back. So it had been like 1995 that I was going through turbine transition. That was the year of the tank chase. And that's when, actually, when you think right back down to it, and I don't want to get, and I know you can't wait to talk about this GD tank chase, but the fact of the matter is, kind of, sort of, Kevin and I, we really hit it off after the tank chase.
Yeah.
And so this would have been 95, 96, that we were really getting into this stuff together.
Right. And that's important for the people that don't know you. You see, I sit here and go, well, I know all this because I know you and Kevin so well. But for the people that don't, I think it's really important to know this is an era. This is long before Tom Churchill's around, all right? Or even Aero Computer or any of that
we
stuff.
didn't have cell phones.
Thank you.
All right.
We had pagers.
We had pagers, and we thought it was cool because we had Alpha Mate pagers that, somebody can actually give us a text message on our pager.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
Air Support and Homicide had those. We thought we were so bitchin' cool.
And you had that FLIR 2000 thing, a map book, a Night Sun, and gyro-stabilized binoculars, right?
A Thomas Brothers map book, just
Thomas
in case.
Brothers, yep.
Just to be,
right. Which is gone now. The youngsters, they have no clue what that is.
I don't know. Did you have this in your unit where there were certain divisions that you worked at so much that usually about 4-ish times a year, you had to replace the Thomas Brothers map book in every aircraft because that page was coming out because we were constantly on it back and forth. Yeah, absolutely.
So with us, when you showed up for your loan, you take your oral, you come out on the list, and they say, Todd, welcome. You're going to come up next month for a 1-month loan. You better show up with your Thomas Brothers map book, customized and laminated.
I remember you telling me that.
Oh my gosh. That was like, I was in Canaan at the time. I remember driving around in South Central over in Baldwin Hills. There were some antenna towers. I wanted to get exactly where they were for my map, and going up on that mountain in the middle of the night, and okay, there's the antenna. Here it is on the map, and drawing it with a pencil on a red dot, and fire stations were marked, police stations, parks, highlighted numbers. And then you would laminate it, and that you showed up day one with that. Because of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Because even with it laminated, I don't know why this sticks out. I wonder if I'm right. I'm going to go look. It was like page 52 through 54 were South Central. Okay. and I mean, those pages were, even with lamination, were worn because you spent so much time on that page flipping it.
Absolutely.
But I just think that's so important for the listeners to understand. This is why the vision that you and Kevin had is so unique, because it would be easy to look at it now and go, well, that's not a big deal what they did. No, it was a big deal because they didn't have what you're looking at. There was no Tom Churchill. We wish there would have been, but there wasn't. And like you said, finding something on the FLIR was easy. I've told people for years that your 10-year-old could find somebody in the FLIR. I mean, whether it's an old one or a new one, your 10-year-old can do it probably better than us. But what they can't do is direct officers to it.
Right.
And what they can't do is think tactically on, is the best way to that heat source this side of the house or that side of the house? And that's why TFOs exist. And that's why good ones exist, But I just wanted to make sure we got that out there when people are talking about this, because you really were ahead of your time.
I think that's super valid, and it's amazing how many times have you sat there with a pair of Fujinon gyro-stabilized binoculars that are weigh about as much as a cinder block in one hand, with the Night Sun controller in the other hand, and you learned how to look around moving the Night Sun controller through these. They were as good as money had. Money couldn't buy anything better than those, at least in the civilian world. But that's what you did before you had a FLIR. Actually, not just before you had a FLIR, but before you knew how to use it, and it was just turned off on the bottom of your helicopter. Yeah.
Question for both of you, and Todd, we'll start with you for the answer, then we'll go to Jack. You talked about the TFO and the prominence of that TFO. The TFO essentially being the rock star that lives within the cockpit, and I 100% agree with you. When I went to aviation, it seemed like maybe 50% of agencies had that mindset. The other 50% felt like the pilot was the important one. A lot of trainings centered around the pilot. Very little training was centered around the TFO. Today, I feel like I would say 80 to 90% of that mindset's gone. 80 to 90% of those agencies realize the TFO is the central person of importance in that cockpit. But when you think through your experience, Todd, and then go to you, Jack, when in your mind did you start to see the tide turn and people start to realize that the TFO really is the person that we need to focus on and improve their skill set?
Right. Well, I mean, on our agency, it's truly embarrassing to think back to the history. And like I said, when I first started, we were all pilots. We didn't have any observers. Nobody knew the term tactical flight officer. We were still working off of Jaffo from Blue Thunder, right?
Yep.
And they were treated like Jaffo was treated on Blue Thunder. Whoever did the consultation for that movie probably got it 100% right, because when we started an observer program at Air Support, we were just looking for bodies. We needed bodies, and we couldn't get the department to give us any extra bodies. So what we did was I told you we had airplanes, and we used those airplanes for covert surveillance for investigations. But we never had enough pilots. We were always so busy flying patrol, we didn't have enough pilots to go fly these airplanes. So we worked out this half lie that, hey, listen, if investigations, we'll take one person from investigations and one person from patrol, and they'll be on loan to us for one patrol cycle, which is only 4 months. You probably can't spell TFO at the end of 4 months. How are these guys going to be any good at this? We didn't know. We were looking for a warm body to get in the aircraft and be able to limp through what Able did in those days, which was practically no infrared work at all. And let's put it this way: it wasn't required. If you were able to pick it up and use it, rock on. If not, do it the old-fashioned way. And we relied on a pilot being able to get these guys through whatever needed to be done. And then that was going to free up, in theory, 2 guys to go jump in an airplane and go do airplane surveillances. And while that was certainly looked good on paper, the reality of it wasn't good for several reasons, not the least of which was the fact that we ended up with people that we did not select. They were picked by their commands. Oh, you can have this guy and you can have that guy. It's like, wow, that's a really good way to get the best of the best here, And we had poor people. They didn't choose to do this. We had guys that were throwing up, didn't want to do the job. Like, what am I doing here? It sounded cool at first, but in short order, even before you started talking about FLIR and so on, like, I don't like doing this. This is not my cup of tea. And we spent a lot of time training those people up, and then we would turn right around and that person would be, boom, gone, vanished. And we'd start all over again with another one. It was exhausting as a trainer to have to do that. And then at some point in time, we morphed into something saying, okay, listen, from now on, it's going to be an interview process and you're going to come here for 2 years. Well, that actually brought out some people going, okay, well, man, I'll do that. And then as that program, and then we really, really, really refined those guys, and those guys got to be pretty darn good. But then at the end of 2 years, you're like, you're kidding me. This guy is awesome. Jack's one of the best guys to ever come up here, and we have to give him up because of 2 years is up. You've got to be kidding me. He doesn't want to leave. We don't want to leave. Boom, he's leaving. The level of stupidity and ignorance just was mind-boggling. It created so much extra work. And then, so at that point in time, we're morphing towards professionalism, and we're morphing towards a little bit of, hey, man, you guys are doing a great job. And then finally, when that became a permanent assignment, that's when things changed. That's when TFOs came in, and now, as long as you come up, toe the line, do a good job, show some job enthusiasm, this is your job to lose. And for my time under that system, under that program, I think things worked well. And I think we had a lot of mutual respect for each other. It was definitely tough. Pilots were making a significant amount of money more than the TFOs were. And in their mind, we're doing the same job. And in a lot of ways, depending on the pilot, maybe the TFO is doing 10 times more work. I don't know. There was a dichotomy, and it was not positive. We did our best as humans working through a situation that we were hobbled by command staff a lot.
Yeah. What year did you retire, Todd?
2019.
So in the time you were there, and I can I'll go back to last year when we visited your agency for the Blades of Valor tour. I can confidently say every person that we flew with, whether they're in the TFO seat or the pilot seat, were highly competent TFOs
That's
and
awesome.
highly competent pilots. So that definitely transitioned and transcended your time. And we talked about how, we stand on the shoulders of those that went before us. And Matt Zadunich, they talk about you and Kevin and what you meant for the program in its entirety quite a bit.
Well, I greatly appreciate that. It's a great report card to hear. That being said, it doesn't surprise me a little tiny bit. When I left there thinking these guys have absolutely 1000% have this. I never sat back and like, what are they going to do without me and Kevin? Well, they're going to do just fine. They need us like they need a hole in their head, and they're going to they're going to find their own way, and they're going to make their own mistakes, and they'll figure stuff out. But we laid an enormously good foundation with them as a team. We didn't drill a hole in their head and pour it in. They did it.
Yeah.
They learned because they wanted to. And I'm sure if I went back there today and went on a couple-day ride along and sat back there, I go, wow, we didn't used to do it that way. We didn't used to do this. It's like, tell me how you came to that. Oh, we just figured this out. I'm like, wow, good on you. That's awesome.
That is what would happen.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, Jack, for you've got a perspective that's a little different. You've instructed across the world. You've seen law enforcement operations from here to Australia. When you think back of across all those different visits, all those different agencies that you've visited, would you say now that the standard is that the TFO is the primary person of importance in the cockpit? And if so, when did that actually change?
It's a different date for every unit, but it is changing. It still is changing. There are units that until recent years just kind of looked at it as TFO's job. Yeah, just look out the window, just do that FLIR thing, whatever. I was fortunate that I got to LAPD air support in '97, and it had already, the tide had changed there. The talking luggage Jaffo days were gone. But I would hear the stories because they weren't gone for a long time, but I would hear the stories of how pilots would yell at observers then and say, hey, don't touch my radio. Or you don't have to tell me about that Cessna traffic there. I'm the pilot. You just look out the window.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost adversarial in some cases. And there was a wall between the pilot and TFO. That wall broke down and was gone by the time I got there.
Good for you.
But it was still, as far as putting the emphasis on the TFO as opposed to the pilot, that was still evolving. And I think Cole Burnett as chief TFO, when he was in there, he got equal pay. It's almost equal. It's like within 0.5% or something. That was a big step because prior to that, the pilot was like 20% more, and TFOs were doing all the work, really. You're as a pilot, you're flying it. You got to keep it safe. You got to do your job. Okay. But the TFOs were working their butts off and doing all the heavy lifting for the mission and weren't getting compensated. And they felt a little bit dissed. That changed under Cole. He worked hard at that. But I feel lucky that I got there after the wall had been broken because I wouldn't want to have gone through that. How do you work in that? We look back because we know what it is when it's good. And you go, could I have worked in that environment? And it would be very challenging. It's challenging enough. You don't need to have conflict in the pilot because I'm a pilot, you're not. Just sit there and talk on the radio. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But there are agencies still out there, that don't quite get it. They're not quite where they need to be yet on that topic. It's a good question, John. It's a really good question.
A lot of those agencies are what we'd consider the flying club agencies still.
Yes.
And I feel like those flying club agencies are being flushed out. They're not being supported financially and politically by their governing bodies because they realize that they're not getting a return on that investment, right?
Yeah. They don't produce.
I feel like 9 times out of 10, when I talk to somebody today, through the podcast or otherwise, that's involved in airborne law enforcement, the TFO is recognized as the person of importance in the cockpit, which is great, and so thanks for going through that. I just, very curious to see how that's developed. I've seen it the line pushed in a good way in my time, and so it was great to get your guys' perspective.
Yeah, which takes us right into my next question for you, Todd. You've touched on it. You mentioned CRM and how you and Kevin worked together a lot, and you got to know each other and what you needed, what you didn't need, and communication. But talk about that evolution from when you, especially with operating the gimbal. How did that evolve? And I know you said already that through a lot of mistakes, but the CRM is kind of different from the actual operation of the FLIR. Talk about CRM and how that evolved particularly with you and Kevin over those years of trying to perfect this.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
There's a term that I had never heard before until I did my short stint with the airline, and it was shared mental model. I'd never heard that before.
Never heard that.
The idea was that the captain and the first officer have a shared mental model about what we're about to attempt here, whether it's a standard operation or something that's outside an emergency procedure. And when I think back now, part of what allowed Kevin and I to figure things out is we had a shared mental model of where we were trying to go. We didn't necessarily know how to get there, but we both were striving for the same thing. If I'm a TFO in an aircraft and my pilot just wants to get back and eat dinner, he doesn't want to put the extra work into flying me on what I need to be a nearly perfect FLIR orbit for this to work. He's not willing to. It just is. It's just a lot more work. It's a lot more work to work a dynamic FLIR situation, especially with a moving target. So when Kevin and I would work together, we had that shared mental model, and that's how we began working through those situations. And one of the things that we did was, when he and I worked together, very rarely were we cruising around like, I don't know, what do you want to do now? I don't know. I can't think of anything. There's no calls. When there were times that were like that, for certain, we're out working things. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. Hey, let's try this. Hey, Kevin was notorious for at 2 a.m. He's using the FLIR. He never, ever, ever put the FLIR controller down. The minute we cleared a call, he's looking at this car. He's looking at that car. He's looking at this guy. What's this guy doing over here? What's this guy doing over here? He was as proactive as anybody I've ever met in a helicopter at nighttime or any time for that matter. And he was out, in patrol, we called it snooping and pooping. What are you going to do? Hey, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's lots of guys that are rafted up someplace in some park, waiting for the sun to rise so they can go home. And then there's usually a couple guys in every division. It's like, oh no, those guys are going to go out and kick some hornet's nest of stuff because they just won't let it go. The bad guys are out there. There's fewer of them. We're going to lurk around. We're going to find them. And then the next thing you know, there's going to be a cover now in the back alley of such and such because everybody's going because these two guys got into it. I think Kevin and I were those two guys in the air. Yeah. And I don't mean that like, we don't deserve 1/10 of the credit that those snooping and pooping cops got. But we would go out, we would find things. It probably less than 5% of the time was it something where we actually followed it long enough that we think, we better get a unit to check these guys out. But, when we did, lots of times it was really good. Or sometimes it was no big deal at all. Or it was just a good field interview that B cop now has because that these guys are up to, they are not out here checking on their grandma's backyard in the middle of the night, right? Yeah. But it was those types of things. If you go out with your partner and you find some car that's slinking down an alley at nighttime, guess what? You can't screw this up. There's nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it. Now, for us, the play and record was always going. Kevin's like, okay, recorder's on. We would usually say tapes on. On. And because we don't know what we're about to see. I don't know, and I certainly don't want to unsee something. And we would look back at those frequently. We learned so much from just doing that, and this wasn't even a call for service. One of the things we worked really hard on was, hey man, we both learned to fly night patrol with the night sun. And about 300 to 500 feet is about the max you got with that. And in lots of times with the night sun, the lower you were, the easier everything was to handle from a pilot standpoint. And we morphed that all the way through to we were working super high altitude from a patrol standpoint. Kevin and I would patrol around all the time at 1,500, 2,000 feet AGL with these old crappy FLIR 2000 FVs. And then as we got better equipment, that got easier and easier and easier to stay super high. Nobody even knows we're here. And if we do this right, but we have to pay super close attention as the pilot. If we do this right, this is actually easy peasy, man. But you've got to get used to the idea. You need to be able to trust each other, okay? Because I can't see what you're looking at on the FLIR. So I'm going to trust that you're not going to screw this up from a FLIR standpoint, and you're going to trust that I'm not going to screw you with getting the aircraft out of position. And when we build that trust together, we can do some pretty cool things together. But it takes constant work. You can't sit there in the middle of this. I mean, listen, we've all been there before. On a call going, oh, give me a break. This is so stupid. Why are we even doing this? And it's happened hundreds, if not thousands of times. Yes, exactly. But I got to be honest with you, man. When I worked with Kevin, I really did feel like, well, we're doing this. I really did feel like we're doing this for these guys. These guys in blue uniforms down here, that's why we're here. They probably think this is as stupid as we do, you know what I mean? But we're going to stay here and we're going to gut this out with them until one of their brothers in another part of the city needs us worse than they do.
And you had successes sometimes on those too, right?
Absolutely.
You just go, we should be out of here. And then 2 minutes later you go, what's that?
Right.
And bingo, you got the guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It happened repeatedly. And, at some point in time, success builds on some degree of anticipation, and you have a very high expectations of each other. I'll tell you this, there was a time, I thought about this the other day. There was a time when Kevin and I worked together, later in our time together, of course, that it occurred to me that tonight, it's just me and just him on a Friday night. Nobody else is working tonight. The whole city is ours. And if we're really lucky, Astria will have to go home early because they're sick, and we'll get the whole county. Everything is ours tonight, right? And that's great. And when I think back, when I was brand new, I would have been intimidated by that. I would have been nervous about, man, don't screw this up. This is, big night, big call, whatever. Towards the end of that process, I truly felt like no matter what happens tonight, the two best guys that can handle, we might screw this up, but I'm telling you, nobody else is going to be able to come in and beat us at this. So whether it's a crazy police call, whether it's a crazy airborne emergency that something happened bad with the aircraft, whether it's somebody else's crazy, unfortunate incident, an aircraft crash or something like that, he and I are uniquely qualified to go do whatever needs to be done to the best that anybody could do this. And it wasn't because we're the right stuff or something. It's because we cared so much to be that sharp all the time. And if you don't care, if you went to air support because you want to wear green pajamas to work, you want to get a healthy pay raise, and you want to wear gold wings and tell your friends and family that you fly a helicopter, that's cool. I did the same thing. But at some point in time, you hopefully will realize, dude, that's cool to them because they don't know any better. Do you want to be good at this? This takes a lot of work. And it was a lot more work than it took to get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, part of CRM is communication. So, communication is a key element of that. That had to evolve too. Your communication with each other to perfect all this. Can you talk about your favorite CRM story with Kevin, where communication was either really good, really poor, or really funny? I mean, I know you can do all three of those, but pick a CRM story with communication with you and Kevin that would be interesting for our listeners.
I'm gonna change the script just a little tiny bit on
Please
this and say my best CRM story that comes to my old feeble mind is actually didn't involve Kevin. he and I certainly had a lot of cool things that we did and figured out together. But the one that comes to mind when I think of this was actually working with a pilot named Blair Stevens. He is a longtime friend of mine. He will be at my house this weekend at a pool party.
Tell him hello.
He's a good human being. We all went to your retirement party together.
Yes, I was honored.
Yes. And, but Blair and I were working one night in a 206 L4 for us in the day. That was quite the machine, man. That thing had gonads of titanium. It was compared to flying around in a Jet Ranger. This thing was pretty amazing with only 2 humans on board. It's like, well, we can do some cool stuff with this. And we were working patrol. It was whatever night it was. I don't remember the night of the week, but it was a little on the slow side. And we're talking to Lindbergh Tower in Class B airspace, and the tower asked us if we were clear to talk to SoCal approach. They had a request for us. And right away, the first thing I'm thinking is, man, I didn't bust any airspace. I have a Class B clearance. What could I have possibly done wrong here?
We're in trouble.
And so we switch over, and then the controller tells us that, hey, I was just working an aircraft that was departing Brown Field, a Learjet. And I had him on an initial heading out of Brown, and I've lost radar contact with him. And the controller tells us, I believe that something happened and he just went nordo. He probably just went back to Brown Field. But if I give you a vector to his last known location I have on radar, could you look and see if you see anything? And then if you don't, almost like foregone conclusion, you're not going to. Then if you don't, could you just check Brown Field and see if you see this Learjet sitting on the ramp down there? I'm like, yeah, of course, we'd be glad to. So he gives us a heading and a distance, and I can see that it's going to be out near Otay Mountain. And there's a little scud layer that's like about halfway up Otay Mountain, maybe not more than like 500 feet thick. And I tell the controller, I said, hey, well, we can go out there for sure, but I'm going to need an unrestricted climb to get up above this stuff to get out there. He's like, hey, the airspace is yours, the only one in it. You do what you need to do. So we get out there, and we're on top of this layer. I felt really comfortable doing what we were doing. It was clear, unlimited visibility, had a big moon above. We were both on night vision goggles. And this 6 night vision goggles, which is important. It was for those of you who haven't used them before, they were a rare treat, and they were somewhat better than having nothing whatsoever. Anyhow, we're on those, and we're out there, and we're orbiting around, and we're both looking, trying to find the controller says, well, you're pretty much where I had him last. I'm looking. I can't see anything. And I said to Blair, I said, man, the only thing I see down here is I've got this cul-de-sac down here, that I can see through the clouds, but I can't see anything else. And Blair very plainly says, dude, we're up in the mountains. There's no cul-de-sacs out here. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no kidding, you dimwit.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a crash scene.
Yeah.
I'm above, the clouds are between me and it. And I couldn't see it with the naked eye, but the NVGs, I could see glowing light down there. And so I could see off to the east that things were, that the clouds were not there. And I told the controller that we need to take a look at something. I'm going to move out here to the east. I need to descend down. You're probably going to lose radar contact with me. We're talking to our own comm center, so don't worry about us. We'll get back to you when we can. And so we did. We went out there. We turned down. We were just north of the Mexican border. We turned down. We came underneath the clouds and came under. And there it is. There's this crash site. This Learjet is driven into the side of the hill. And there's a fair amount of really gnarly black smoke because this thing was fueled up and ready to go. It was going to fly. It was flying back to Albuquerque. And so it impacted, minutes after departure. And so there's jet fuel all over the hillside. And for whatever reason, I don't know the physics of it, but the cloud cover was keeping that black smoke down under. The smoke was not making it through there. So that little scuddy marine layer was forcing that black smoke down. Interestingly enough, Blair in a prior life was an EMT up in the Long Beach area, if I remember correctly. And in a prior life, I was a paramedic in the suburbs of Detroit. And I'm thinking, man, we're flying an L4. If there's somebody to pick up, we can do it in this baby. And then again, remember, there was no fire department helicopters in those days. They didn't have helicopters. Nobody's coming out here to do this except us. And so we came down and around, and we basically snuck up, down below the crash site because anything above that was just smoke. You couldn't see anything at all. And I'm trying to work my way to find a place to land on a very precipitous slope. And I end up finding what I think is a reasonable rocky outcropping that I can put the aircraft on. And I was initially trying to put the aircraft in a position so I was going to land. I could only move the tail. The Long Ranger was a pretty long aircraft, and I definitely couldn't turn the tail anywhere towards the hillside. And I was working triple overtime. And he and I, we'd already reconned this to the extent that we possibly could. And there was not much to be said at that point in time. It's just like, hey, Todd, don't screw this up. That's what I'm saying to myself.
Yeah.
But this is long story to the CRM portion of this. As I'm struggling to find ground that's the slope is acceptable, because my goal is to shut down completely, and he and I are going to get out and walk through this crash site and see if we can find any survivors. Blair says, very succinctly, never forget it my entire life, he says, hey, I think you're doing exactly the right thing. You're doing a good job. Just remember, there's probably nobody for us to save.
Wow. Excellent.
Hey, that's critically important. In my mind, I'm thinking we're going to go up here and we're going to save some people. We're going to do the right thing, Boy Scout style. And he's looking at this from a slightly different perspective, and he realizes there's nobody is alive in this poor mess. We need to do what we need to do, but for God's sakes, don't kill us in the process of this, which, I know everybody shakes their head and goes, well, of course, that's always first responders. That's always what you do. Well, that's not always what you do.
That's right.
It doesn't always happen just that way. And sometimes people with the best of heartfelt intentions go and screw things up, and really bad things happen to people that there was no reason for that. So I didn't do anything different except take a deep breath, relax, and probably, 10 seconds later, relaxed enough to put it down. We shut down and spent the next hour and a half crawling through this scene, and couldn't find anybody alive.
Right.
But I'll never forget that my entire life. I'll never forget how, he was not even a pilot in our unit at the time. And I say that not even, he, as a TFO in our unit, had the wherewithal to put that together and realize that I needed just coaching, call it whatever you want. He understood that it was time to say something. And I don't think it was because I was scaring the hell out of him either. I think it's just he understood the situation and he knew what I was trying to do, and he just wanted to make sure that I had a good perspective on it. That is priceless.
It is
priceless.
And probably I would just emphasize the fact that he was comfortable saying it.
Absolutely.
Not only did he say it,
right.
I mean, he thought it. That's a great thing to have a TFO that's sitting there thinking about this stuff. But he had the courage and comfortable relationship with the pilot to say, it's my duty to say this.
Well, I'll tell you something.
And I can tell Todd, and he's not going to say, shut up, Jaffo.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support. Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.